Welcome back students. I am your SST teacher Vandana Joshi and you are watching SST June. Students, in our last video of this chapter, weavers, iron smelters and the factory owners, we have studied about the cotton textile and the weavers, in which we have studied a glorious part of Indian weavers and how the Indian textile declined during the arrival of British. So in our today's video we will see another popular industry in India which is much popular during that time, that is iron and steel industry. So let's start our today's topic. The story of Indian steel and iron starts from the sword of Tipu Sultan, which was made up of wood steel. The sword was incredibly hard and had sharp edges, which could easily rip through the opponent's armor. It was made from high carbon steel, which is known as wood, that was manufactured all over South India earlier. It was kept in London Museum, but now it has been brought back to India through an auction. Wood steel was famous all over the world until competition from British iron and steel imports, which replaced Indian iron and steel. Wood steel needed special techniques of refining iron. Iron was mixed with charcoal and put inside small clay pots. By controlling temperature, the steel ingots for sword making, where it was produced by the iron smelter. This kind of steel was found not only in India but in Central and West Asia also. Wood steel was produced in many rural areas across India. It was very hard as special type of high carbon steel crystals was used to make it. The term woods is derived from the Telugu word hukku, Kannada word ukku, and the Tamil and the Malayalam word urukku. All these words means steel. The industrialization in India was slow and erratic on account of two reasons. One was the lack of capital and lack of infrastructure to establish heavy machinery factories, and the other was the strength policies of the British, which favored the development of only those industries which would profit the British. A separate Department of Commerce and Industry was set up by Lord Curzon in 1905 for industrialization of India. In some areas, the government did grant access to the forest, but the iron smelter had to pay a very high tax to the forest department for every furnace they used. This reduced their income. Moreover, by the late 19th century, iron and steel was being imported from Britain. So, if there was a competition in the industrialization during the British period, so how in the later period the iron and steel industries came up in India and how they popular? After arrival of Charles Weld, a geologist, in 1904 and Dorabji Tata, it was planned to start an iron and steel factory in Chhattisgarh. The Tata Iron and Steel Company was the first modern iron and steel plant in India. By 1911, it had a substantial production and soon became the largest single steel plant in the British Commonwealth. When Charles Weld and Jamshedji Tata reached Chhattisgarh in search of iron ore deposits for setting up a modern iron and steel plant, Jamshedji Tata aimed to start a huge iron and steel plant in India. For this, he required good quality iron ore. After a long search, Weld declared that they had discovered one of the finest ore in Rajhara Hills, a treasure of finest ores in the world, but the region was dry, having scarcity of water. After the death of Jamshedji Tata, his son Dorabji Tata established a steel plant on the bank of the river Subarnrekha and named his industrial town as Jamshedpur. The area was rich in iron ore and water both. The Tata Iron and Steel Company, TISCO, started producing steel in 1912. Following the start of World War I in 1914, imports of British steel to India lessened as the British now had to meet wartime demands. During the course of the war, TISCO also had to produce and supply shells and cartridge wheel for the war. By 1919, colonial government was buying 90% of the steel manufactured by TISCO. J.R.D. Tata, the successor of Jamshedji Tata, founded India's first commercial airline in 1932. In 1946, its name was changed from Tata Airlines to Air India. Over the time, TISCO became the biggest steel industry within the British Empire. Students, here I am providing you a short journey of TISCO plant from the British period to the current time. So students, here our chapter is complete. Here you have seen a glorious history of textile and its decline, and after again its rise up. You have also studied one more famous plant, that is the Tata Iron and Steel Industry, which named TISCO. So two stories you have seen in our this chapter: weavers, ironsmithers and the factory owners. Students, hope you understood this chapter. Students, for more updates and video, keep watching SST June.